If anybody hasn't met Wesley Wasgood Armstrong, we met because we did this amazing event here in LA that our good friend Adrian Lehens helped us coordinate, which was kind of bringing in at that time a lot of people that maybe weren't as bought into AI creativity. And then there was sort of an instinct from Adrian's network to introduce people that are sort of really high active, really successful AI, called regular creators. And by that, I mean people that haven't been using these tools. And we created an event at the Kin in Venice where we introduced them to some folks that might even be in the audience today. And it was, first of all, it was awesome. And Adrian's so great at creating these spaces for us too. But it was very clear that there's a few people in that room that were like, signal received, I am here. And Wesley more than anybody. And we just started seeing you at every event. And again, when we just take a peek at what you've built for yourself, like we live in, humility of what you've successfully built as a creator and how much we can learn from you. So that's a big thing we'd love to hear about. But you've been doing your thing as a creator, but you are now also seeing the opportunities of how these tools fit your style and what you can do here. And I suspect you have a lot of ideas of what is to come. So I'm excited for everybody to meet you today. I see Dante raising his hand, but I might let you run with it a little bit, and we'll get the vibe on how people come up on stage. But welcome, Wesley.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you for that great intro. Yeah, like Fred said, I started in the space maybe like 5 years ago with a big YouTube group called Corridor Digital. They had this thing called a prompt battle, and I had no idea what that was about. And we were using the tools that were available at the time, from Stable Diffusion to what was available on Discord at the time. And I messed with it, and I was like, this is cool, this is crazy, but it's hard to do. And then fast forward to the event I went to with you, where Adrian kind of bridged the gap between uh, influencers and AI artists. Uh, I was luckily partnered with Verena, and she just kind of opened my eyes to what is uh, possible with these tools in terms of AI. And from there, I just kind of took the deep dive. So that was maybe like 6 months ago. And since then, I've been commissioning work from different different producers and people within the space, which has been great. The most recent thing is with the for the World Series for Major League Baseball, that opening sequence with Pharrell, Dante, and we did the previs to what they wanted for the Voices of Fire and Pharrell show using AI images, so Adobe Firefly, Weavy, and a few other programs to get those images together. But backstory on me, I've been in the industry for, just about 20 years as a film director. And along that way, I've influenced and grown my following to a little over 3 million followers. Um, and yeah, I've just been having fun with the space. I brought, so today, I guess I brought a few things to show. One is a reel that I put together specifically for this.
Sick.
And then I want to show some workflow stuff. So
That'd
I
be
guess we can
awesome.
see if I
I
can.
mean, I wonder just before you jump in, like, and you're kind of alluding to it, what is that light bulb? As someone who clearly already found a home in the creator economy and built something that is super exciting to see from afar. And as we get to know you, what is it? What does that shift look like to you? For what is it? Is it a productivity thing? Is it an automation thing? Is it a creativity innovation thing? What are the light bulbs that go off for you?
I think AI is a few different things. I think it's a tool of convenience. It's a way to kind of show previs to ideas that I can't necessarily afford to do just yet, given budgets. I am a traditional filmmaker, so I find that, prompting is a little bit easier for me because I speak, I guess, the cinematic language that the tools understand to get the shots that I get. Um, and I think everyone in here understands it's nothing to be afraid of. It's a tool to assist you to get your vision and idea across. In terms of social media, uh, I've kind of pulled back in terms as a content creator per se, because there's a lot of noise out here. I feel like today, we're in an age of disposable media. It's hot today, forgotten tomorrow. You're chasing this constant high of blowing up, but that globe is just for a moment, and I'm not chasing that. I'm trying to create something that you know inspires, has a lasting effect or legacy appeal. And I when I look at AI and things like Sora, it reminds me of Vine. Uh, you know, it's quick content that's here today, forgotten tomorrow, essentially. But we're able to create really compelling pieces, if you know how to tell a story. So that part really intrigues me. I want to tell incredible stories, and I want to see how I can push the boundaries of what these tools can do.
I mean, and again, it's all sort of in that economy mindset of where does this is this a new part of the funnel? Is this a new part of the way you market the type of commission business you get? Anyway, it's a lot that we can learn from as we watch it. And you were about to share something with us, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but thanks.
No, I'm sure. But I do think, like, just my personal philosophy behind it. This creates a new lane for you. With when for me, I've had several successes within this industry, but I have not done the $100 million feature that I'm looking to do. Uh, and because everyone is, I look at AI like fax to email. This is one of those evolutionary jumps that if you're an early adopter, you can really own that space, and people will come to you as the expert of that space. And so that's really my goal and my direction when I think about AI. Like, I want to be someone that people come to to learn or to hire on as a guide for this next evolutionary change. So I will share the new hype reel that I put together for us. Um, Share my screen like this. Okay,
Does that come up?
there it is. All
Okay.
right, you
Okay.
guys are the first viewers.
Is there a
I just
way,
finished this.
before we watch it on a small frame, is there an obvious way that I can go full screen with this, Min, or anybody that's smarter than me? I just see it as a small frame here.
Yeah, small frame. Mm,
Yeah, I
see.
don't think there's a way to pin it like we
Uh,
do otherwise.
and it
I think
maybe
people
it's
can.
something, yeah,
Yeah.
I think individually I just ran my cursor over it and like a little TV image came up and it came up full screen for me. If anybody, I think you might be able to do that on your side.
For
Oh
me,
yeah, you can click on it yourself. Yeah,
Yeah, so if
and
anybody
I'll
wants
match
to
my
see this big, just run your
viewer.
cursor over it. There's like a little like flat screen image, and that makes it big.
is that? Let me say. Tell me, is
Look,
this
looks great for me. And when you
here?
go full screen, it's even
Oh
better.
yeah,
That's
you're
fantastic.
good, Les. That's great.
Okay. All right. I'm going in three, two, one.
And five. Hi. We're live. Wait, what? Welcome to KGOG. KGOG. Do not let them leave here alive.
Super great. And what's the how long have you been in AI now? What is it? 4 months? 5 months?
I would say like a good 6 months now.
6 months.
Like 6 months, like like back to back. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as great a reel as I've seen from anybody, and it shows how much you've been heads down, self learning and participating.
Yeah.
And I also love when I see you at events, you're walking around with like a laptop hanging, playing one of those videos, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is that? You're like marketing, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, I think it's a very savvy, broader positioning you have for yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the reason what's helped me along the way in this industry is betting on myself. That's you have to be your own biggest fan first. And when it came to like marketing, at events, I used to always go around with my iPad or I have my business cards like spread out on a laptop, and I'd be like, new visual heat. Hey, we should work together. And I'm just, it's icebreaker. With the iPad, people will look at it like, hey, you have your screen. I'm like, oh yeah, how you doing? My name's Wes. Nice to meet you. This is some of my work right here. Do you like, and so like when the room is cold, I break the ice, and that just opens up the door for deeper conversation and great networking.
Yeah.
So,
Obviously, if people have
uh,
questions, use the chat and I'll figure out how to bring you up on stage if you have questions. I mean, one thing that I'm curious about um, is, we when we talk to like maybe, what we might call a traditional filmmaker and, whether they're talking to movie studios or TV networks, there's always this question of how are people receiving what we're up to? And I
mhm.
think it's a pretty good meme that like creators or someone of your kind of success level in terms of having an audience, like you're a TV channel, like you have a reach that is presumably valuable to people you do business with. So at that level of there's people that have built a trust with you, there's people that have grown with you. Are you getting any feedback on your AI work? Like in the way that we seem to always hear about it, that at studios, everybody's got opinions, TVs, networks, everybody's, Guillermo del Toro hates it, like I'm just saying, like, what's it like on your liminal space, how people interact with you and your fans.
It's, it's a mixed crowd, myself, Dante, and Daystorm, we've been releasing content online now, and there are some people that are just like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't know you guys were going to be inside of this space. The latest was the Inspector Gadget, and it's mixed reviews. At first I was nervous to show any of my friends that are animators, but I have friends that work at Sony that have been like, you got to teach me how to do this. I have a friend specifically that's working on a film, an animated film. He's been there on this one film for 7 years and like 6 months because there's so many rewrites and re-renders, or they haven't even got to the stage of creating the characters. But he's like, this would help us out tremendously to be able to previs this. So there's some people that are really interested in this next transition, or can foresee like this is valuable.
But I guess, like, what about the fans? Like people that just love what you do. Like, why are you using AI? Or are there people like, wow, I never knew that could be used for this? Again, I'm also interested in just the people that love content.
They've been great. I have a group chat on Instagram where you know, I can't remember. I think it was the Studio Ghibli thing that dropped, and everyone was making their thing, and I was like, well, let me mess with this. So I've dabbled in everything, and so I've been introducing them to it, and they started sending me videos like, hey, what do you think about this? And I just kept going. So I think they're enjoying what it is, but I also think the the thing with AI, it's a learning curve that they pay for, for the most part. And the benefit I have is being able to partner with some of these companies to then use the tools where it's not breaking the bank. So, that pay to play aspect, like I'm at least able to show what's possible, and that's exciting for people.
I think I'm pronouncing your name right. Javed is asking, how do you get so much better at AI cinematic prompting in just less than 6 months? I might answer for you. I think because you're a good storyteller, but I'm curious what your answer is.
Um, it's I want to say it's about a month and a half of really trial and error, and sometimes yelling at ChatGPT for the prompt I want. Like, no, I want a 35 millimeter lens, and it's gonna dolly to the right. So like the filmmaking background helped out a lot. Being able to explain what a shot is, what the lens I want to use is, if I wanted to rack focus or if I wanted to dolly left or push in. It's that. And then I watch a ton of tutorials on YouTube, a ton. There's this guy named uh, Hal Prompts, I think that's his name, or Tal Prompts. And I watched a ton of his videos, and I've just been absorbing. I want to show you one of the workflows that I think would be really interesting
Yeah,
for
you also
people.
have to show Inspector Gadget, by the way, or at least link it.
I want to show. I really liked or enjoyed Weavy. I'm not sure if everyone's in it, but I think it's a great tool to use. And I'll literally just kind of break down what I did for it. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. So first things first is I create this in like MidJourney, right? And there's things I don't like about this image. I don't like this sign. I don't like this ball, and I don't like this cat. All right. So what I need to do in Weavy, I can right click and I can reprompt something using Nano Banana or one of the tools, and I wipe it all clean. So I remove those specific things. So now we have a clean area. But I want that sign and I want that magic ball. So the next thing I'll do is I'll go into ChatGPT. Sorry. And I want this sign, Pete's Pet Psychic Reading. It gives me that in ChatGPT just as an image. I bring it in here and I'm like, well, this doesn't give me that Pixar DreamWorks feel. So then I prompt. I'm like, hey, I want this DreamWorks Pixar feel. It gives me this, and it gives me this, and it gives me this. The sign I like is this one right here, right? LumaPhoton gave me that one. And the cool thing about Weavy, you come over here, you can look text to image, image to video. You can do all the things right here, and it will give you access to all those tools, all within inside there. I like these wrapper ones. Anyways, so boom, I have my sign, but I don't like the background. So I use a remover and I remove this background. Great. Need to do the same thing for this crystal ball. Create the crystal ball in MidJourney, remove the background. Now I come over here to compositor, all right? And inside a compositor, I can place the things that I want. So let me move back. I place that right there, and I place this right here. It's literally Photoshop for video, which I love. Now the things are here that I like. I got Pete's Pet Psychic Reading, I got my magic ball, and I got my guy. So now here's where the fun part comes in. I get to prompt. I want this sign to move just a little bit, and I want him to pick up this crystal ball. So we come over here to my weaves, and well, we got to lock this image in first. So I use Gemini Flash to like lock it in right there, right? And then we come over here to my weaves. And each one of these are things that I have prompted out for these images right here. So if I click it, boom, he goes and picks up this crystal ball. Let me just show you if I can zoom in. And he does it a few different ways. He moves it over. I have one right here where he's messing with it, shaking it. And these are all the prompts that I used. And then I'll bring it into Topaz, upres it to 4K, and I have the snippet of it. Let me know if this shares. Can you see this hovering over?
I don't see a hover.
Okay, give me 1 sec. I'm just gonna change one thing. Discord, going and
yeah, it might, if it's multiple panels, it might only show one.
Yeah, I'm gonna share this other screen real quick. Share, and so this is it, fully fleshed out. Just that one moment.
Please tell me he's gonna be a good dog.
It's coming to me. Yes, there it is. I can't believe it. The spirits are very strong today. He is meant just for you.
Looks great.
That is the
And-
scene, but that's a
I mean, just
Mhm.
curious, like this style of animation, this storytelling, how close to this has this either always been? Because I've seen a variety of things from you. Like, is this like where you've already been and now it's leveling up? Is this a new swim lane for you to be doing, what some people might call like Pixar-like animation, or where does this sit?
I've never done anything like this before in my life.
Unreal. Love it.
Never. I'm definitely like, hands on the ground, like filmmaker. So I specialize in commercials. That started in social media. I would create I started working with like the Fortune 500 companies, I would make sketches that were actually brand deals. So you felt like it was a sketch, but by the end, you're like, oh wow, that was a McDonald's commercial. And that ended up getting me signed to my agent, full North America, and then I started doing Allstate commercials. But in terms of animation, it's I've always been visual effects driven, but I've never actually done anything like this before AI.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, for
Yeah.
what it's worth, for people that are maybe seeing Weavy in a deeper way, they just got acquired by Figma, if I'm using the right CNBC language. They just did announce the big deal with Figma, which is by some accounts bullish or exciting to see two different products a lot of us like. And also, for what it's worth, for anybody that likes the Robo Dojo that we did with Fred Graver, we're going to be announcing a new one that is going to be Weavy heavy. And actually, we're going to be talking to another creator about their take on Weavy. So if people are digging on Weavy, there's more to come from Machine Cinema. But sorry, back to you. I mean, that narrative of how this opened up animation is so cool. And I think that speaks to so many people's individual journeys with AI, that it just opens a door for things that maybe they didn't have a sense of permission or a sense of access or a sense of ability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the possibilities are really endless. I think that the skill set at the end of the day is prompt engineering and imagination, and this is for sure the NBA of imagination. And whoever can play the best is going to win, I think.
That's amazing. Do you want to share a little bit of Inspector Gadget? I mean, and I guess it's a little long, but it was our pick of the week recently, when we have a bit of a sort of internal sharing of like our favorite films that we do in our newsletter. I mean, I have a link here. Do you want to share it or on your side, or
Yeah, yeah, I pulled it up right now.
we'll watch a little bit of it and people should just click on the link. I just think it's so cool. We should all just celebrate it because some of us love Inspector Gadget from our childhoods. Um,
Yeah, no, I loved Inspector Gadget growing up. This is let me see if I can make this a little bit larger because it is on Instagram. There we go.
yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Um, what's cool about this is the blend I was talking about in terms of like content creation meets AI. We specialize in creating funny videos that hook you in the first 3 to 6 seconds, and we want to do that same thing. There's a cool partnership with Weavy, so shout out to them.
Yep.
Let me refresh so it plays.
This show is crazy.
Man, facts. You ain't grow up if you ain't watch Inspector Gadget.
What? I just like this today. Right.
What, man, you ain't want to be Inspector Gadget?
Yeah, what if I could jump off buildings and fight real goons?
Generational curses broken. Generational curses broken. Days of fools now spoken. Yo! This place is coming down. Go get it, chopper. Gadget here, be the black eye.
Penny, get me out of here.
On my way.
Find Gadget tonight.
Traffic jam, Inspector.
Don't sweat it. I'ma come to you. Go Gadget will.
The best. I'm waiting.
Also that
When are you doing Woody Woodpecker? Because that's the other cartoon from my childhood that needs kidding.
that would be fun. I would say also gonna say that that song is all AI as well. That was made in Suno. So
I think the song is
Yeah.
almost as iconic. Let's see. Winston has a question. Let me see if I'm getting better at this. You should be coming up on stage, Winston.
Hey,
I just
Hey.
had a quick question for Wesley. He's always been big in the space. Just about like the changes he sees with just, I guess, like the volume of AI content. So is it with the algorithm, is it easier to go viral now? Is it really competitive? Are brands still having a lot of like payouts for influencers, or it's not as easy to get payouts? Just like the changes in the space socially.
That's a good question. Brands are always going to be there. I think they're slowly leaning into it. Um, in terms of like going viral, it's kind of a luck of the draw. I think we're in the era of the niche creator. And if I'm the guy that takes my fist and I punch through pizzas every day, you're gonna come back to see which pizza I'm punching through, you know? Um, in terms of making, I think when I think about these companies now, um, just as in the evolution of how everything goes, you have this window of time where there are certain people working at companies that are fans of you that are gonna be like, hey, you know what? I love Winston stuff. We should work with him. Then they eventually move positions or go to a different area, and there's a new wave of people that come in, and that new wave have different fans of people that they're going to pick for influencer jobs. So my idea has always been to just constantly crank out content because the work is going to attract the right people. It's not about a million people seeing your work. The right person is going to see your worth. So that's been my approach.
Thanks.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
question. Dante, I know you were trying to come up a couple times, and I was just keeping it mellow with one speaker at a time. But I know you're a partner to Wesley. Did you want to add anything? We can bring you up, or not. Just opening the door. So cool. There's so many different things to tug on as we all get to know you. We're so glad to have you in LA because we get to hang out with you in person. I mean, anything that you would to put out to the community, many of whom you're interacting with digitally, but in terms of IRL, like, are you looking for collaborations? Or is anything that you would sort of, how can people help you? How can people, obviously will follow you. You're going to drop all kinds of links in our world, but yeah.
I'm absolutely looking forward to just kind of like building out my production company and then partnering with all the creatives within this space. I've already partnered with Borgen and Jacob Russo. They've helped me out on they actually helped me on Inspector, which has been great. And everybody I've been meeting, it's just been a really cool community, and everyone's chill and humble, and I love it.
Well, we're grateful to have you here in LA, and I think for anybody that is not in LA, I'm glad you're getting to meet Wesley and obviously follow him just to keep up with this awesome stuff. But again, we'd love to keep collaborating with you and growing with you and learning from you and, finding things that we should be doing next year all together. So thanks for being a leader and being a creative sort of inspirational so many of us. And thanks for being a friend too. You also have been doing, there's some really amazing introductions you've been starting to make of like your friend at NASA that we might meet one of these days. Like there's very cool just to see how you've been contributing.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for providing the space. I think every time I come to one of these things, I learn something new, which is really motivating. Literally every time I come to one of the Gen Jams or events, like I learn something new. So
That means
thank
a
you.
lot to us. Well, thank you, and obviously stick around as you get to meet Deepak. And of course, if people have questions for Wesley that we didn't get to, please use the chat. I'm going to move you to the audience and bringing up a new friend of mine this year. And I'd say I'll give a shout out to our friend Charlie Fink, who introduced me to Deepak because as part of the work I'm doing with Chroma, the upcoming deadlines are November 17th for the Chroma Awards, if anybody's still trying to submit. But I've been doing this work to connect with other university kind of leaders and professors that can talk to students who want to submit films into that competition. And Deepak, you are at Texas A&M, if I'm getting the right Texas
Yep.
school correct. But besides being a teacher in Texas, you have a really, really interesting career that I think a lot of people I can see in the audience overlap in terms of, virtual and VFX and this sort of hybrid intersection. So you probably have even more to say about, I think where these sort of practical applications are going
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
terms of like what we might call professional film sets. which is a slightly different world than even what we just learned about from Wesley, although Wesley spent a lot of times with professional film sets too. But in terms of that creator economy versus these sort of, higher stakes sets, perhaps. Maybe I'm blurring that, but excited for people to meet you. And if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and I think you had a couple things you want to show us.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm really happy to be here, Fred. Thanks for inviting me. So as Fred said, my name is Deepak Chetty. I'm a filmmaker. I've been making movies. I'm 40 years old. I've been making movies with since I was 6, the stop motion with Legos and action figures. Went and got my undergrad degree at Pratt Institute in the early 2000s, where I really just learned about aesthetic, and that led me to want to be a cinematographer. But, the reality of that being in New York and being 20 years old after graduating was I realized that was going to be quite a steep climb. So I basically skilled up in post-production, and my first couple jobs were as an editor, as a motion graphics artist, and then visual effects. I still did camera, but I did my own thing. I was shooting films for my friends. I wasn't really doing that much industry work. I would say interesting work. Yes, that was like a little bit of a slip. But I ended up going to grad school because I wanted time to focus on my own films again, because I was just working for other people for so long, for the years after graduating. So I came to UT Austin here, got my master's in film production, focused on directing, visual effects and cinematography again. And while I was here, I was very lucky at UT to be there when they had a program called UT 3D. And it was sort of using high-end industry technology at that point, stereoscopic imaging. So I made a master's thesis that was a sci-fi action movie that was shot completely in native 3D. It took me 1 year to do all the VFX. It ended up winning some industry awards and was distributed, and that sort of kickstarted my career. But when I worked on that project specifically, as I sort of mentioned, it took 1 year to do all the VFX. I did everything by myself, and I had to build a custom pipeline in After Effects to do stereoscopic 3D composites, because I couldn't afford a nuke license back then. I sort of told myself I never wanted to sit at a computer again for a year just to work on one project. That time is too precious, and that's the resource I value the most, even more than money or access. So I got into real-time filmmaking. So, I started experimenting with Unreal Engine at the same time I started teaching at UT Austin. I taught there for 9 years. And, that led me to get employed by Epic. So if any of you had ever learned or did any sort of learning on Unreal Engine for real-time cinema from like 2018 to 2022, I was the producer for all that course content for Unreal Online Learning. And around that same time, because ML workflows are being used for performance capture and all sorts of stuff like that, I just decided to do a deep dive into Gen AI. And since my background is as a practical filmmaker, films that I've shot as a DP have played at South by, Slam Dance, all sorts of festivals around the world. I've done features, I'm always rooted firmly in the traditional production workflow and the methodologies, like how we think of making a movie practically. My goal with generative AI is sort of to extend that. I don't want to reinvent it. I'm not trying to create a new language. I'm trying to adapt the tools that I've used my entire career into this space, thereby making it hopefully more cinematic, if you will. So I have a couple things that I want to share. One is, let's see, can y'all see this? I'm just going to play the trailer to a piece that I've made. This is a full short, it's a full narrative. Just was selected for the Omnifest in Australia. But this sort of represents something I started working on last year, because I've done a bunch of tests. I've been testing for years, but I've stopped doing tests. So this is one thing that I want to sort of say to everybody, is if you have a handle on the technology, I think it's really important that you just start applying it immediately to narratives. You can get in an endless loop of like, let me just test this shot, or let me just test this sequence. But what we're trying to do, or at least most of us outside of working in abstraction, is trying to tell stories. So I think it's really important, especially for me, is like, I don't do tests anymore. If I'm doing a test, it's a part of a sequence that I'm creating an entire narrative around. I'm not just trying to do a one-shot thing that I sort of distribute and, see what happens. I'm trying to really tell a story. So this is going to be a trailer. I'm going to share a scene from the film as well, so you can just sort of see an actual scene. And then I'll share a little bit of what I'm working on right now, which is a completely different workflow. And I'll sort of explain these as we go. So was visible, right? Making
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Okay, so Raksha is a short that I've done, and you can see it's black and white. The film is actually complete. It's a made-up language. It's dubbed like it's ADR. My goal for this film, because I started it last October, and I finished it, earlier this year, was to embrace the current level of technology. So that's something else that I'm like highly cognizant of, because as somebody who's so rooted in practical filmmaking, if we have a bad take, we don't use it, right? So I'm not trying to get, I'm trying to make everything as perfect as I can. And for me, that's also understanding the limitations of the technology today, right? Because I know that things change. They change every day, every week. This technology is moving at light speed. But when I'm working on a current project, sometimes what I like to do is just sort of pause my tech stack while I'm developing, right? So everything can be contiguous. I don't have features in certain scenes that won't be represented throughout the entire film. So for this specifically, lip sync wasn't where I wanted it to be at this point of the process of creation. So my solution in my head was, well, I'm going to make it seem obviously dubbed, right? And since this is sort of a mythological narrative that takes place in a, the goal was to then create a language. So I hybridized Tamil, Malayalam, like dialects from where my family's from in India, because it is like sort of an East meets West story. And then I sort of fused a bunch of Scandinavian languages together, used ChatGPT to turn my screenplay, like the lines written in English, into this hybrid language. Actually have the characters speak. But since I'm not worried about lip sync, right, I can just focus on, the appearance of the performance, which is mostly live portrait, like so using my iPhone with Face Fusion and Comfy UI workflows to do live portrait. But also, once you're in it for, let's say, the first 2 minutes of the movie, I think a lot of people sort of just forget. They've seen foreign films before, they've seen movies that have been dubbed. They understand that like it's not going to be perfect. So that part of their psyche just, stops thinking about it, and then they just absorb the story. But this workflow, and I'm going to queue up a scene here that I can show y'all. This workflow is primarily image to video, and the basis for the image, while I use models like MidJourney, Flux, Stable Diffusion, SDXL way back when, almost every start frame though had a control net that was based off an Unreal Engine layout. So since I have a background in Unreal, I do a lot of layout work in Unreal where I'll just like gray box an environment, use metahumans to block my characters, and then I do an image to image with control net to like bring my characters in. I train Laura's for faces, wardrobe, et cetera, so that allows me to have like a relative layer of continuity. But let me present an actual scene here just so you can sort of see how some of this works, like in the context of a scene. So let's see. All right, I'm gonna play it. So it is subtitled. Yeah. All right, I'm going to stop it there because then we get into crazy spoiler territory for the twist that happens at the end of the film. But, a lot of my work too is focused on trying to get coverage the same way that I would get it if I was filming a film practically. So really what that means to me is it starts with the screenplay. I develop the shot list, right? I make boards or previs, and then that becomes the basis for my animatic edit. So I have a full edit of the film that is just still images, right, with camera push-ins, like keyframed camera stuff, and then I take that to image to video. And so my thought process, right, for that, as somebody who's a director, a cinematographer, practically an editor, visual effects person, is, you know, I'm getting takes. So I view the Gen AI motion model as my camera, right? So I will get a bunch of takes. I'll put them in my editorial bin. You know, I watch them as I'm getting them, but I don't make any decisions until I sit down for the edit. And so, you know, this workflow, you know, I've just been introduced to stuff like Weavy. So like this has been a very custom workflow, like in terms of me piecing together all this stuff offline. But in general, it's just that. It's I'm writing the script, I'm doing the shot list, I'm gathering all the sorts of assets and reference that I need. I mentioned using Unreal Engine to do layouts for frames, so I have total control over how I'm presenting the environment, the blocking in terms of where the characters are. I do a lot of start frame, end frame workflows using models like Kling, Wan, etc. Like this piece, the motion, is basically every open source technique that was available at the time, as well as almost all the commercial techniques that were out there in terms of the services like Kling. The only one I didn't use actually for this was Runway. But you know, for me though, it's once again really important that I'm trying to keep it as similar to the process that I normally do when I'm making films, because otherwise, you know, I don't have anything negative to say about just purely text prompting, but I like to bring in the layers of control that the technology has made available with things like ControlNet and stuff like that. So I do truly feel like I'm in control of the pixels. So this film also, I have a Blackmagic Cinema camera. I did a lot of frames actually using that to start with too. I posed my kids, like there's a lot of stuff on horseback in this film. My kids have like a toy dinosaur that they sit and ride on. So I would literally like, you know, take frames of them. And even though they're a child, I mean, I can just in paint the character that I want. And once again, I'm in control of the blocking. But the film I'm working on now, because, you know, like I said, I started this last year, is very, very different in terms of the workflows because the natural language understanding capabilities of the models themselves have improved. So previously, like in this film, you know, I'm putting my cinematographer hat on. It's like, I know what a certain sensor size with a certain focal length combo should feel like in terms of the horizontal FOV. And that is something that's really important that I think, you know, if you're trying to go towards cinema, right? You know, not the social media type stuff, but you're trying to replicate cinema. You have to keep that in mind because, you know, if you're presenting an FOV, like, you know, horizontal FOV, what are the boundaries of the frame from left to right, in a way that is not actually replicable, there's a subconscious thing that even the most casual viewer will sort of implicitly understand when they take a look at it that will make it not feel quite cinematic, right? If you're doing impossible camera moves, if you're not bringing in the sense of physics and weights of like actual camera operation, if you will. So these are things that I like really, really, really focus on because to me, that brings it closer to cinema and sort of bridges the gap because, you know, this is meant to look live action, but there's not, at the end of it, there's not one single pixel that is actually, you know, derived, you know, from a one-to-one reality, right? It's always an illusion. But for the film I'm working on now, which is once again, it's another genre piece, and I'll speak a little bit about that in a minute. Like, just that's what I do. I do genre stuff, which is why this technology to me is so exciting. But since the models have gotten better, you know, like I now, you know, just do this, you know, I just use Photoshop and like reference imagery to do my start frames. Like I'm not using Unreal as much anymore because I feel like the tools have improved, you know, to change the camera in a location with Quen or, you know, Flux or Flux Context or whatever. There's so many different options now. So what I normally do now is I start with a wide. I establish the location. I don't put the characters in there. And then I start getting angles that I like inside of the scene. Then I start inserting my characters in Photoshop just by compositing them in. But what's really nice about all this stuff now is I found, especially with VO and Kling, is like I don't even have to spend a lot of time making the characters feel like they're seated in the Photoshop file. Like even if there's 20 or 30 layers, because I'm making like so many photo bash adjustments, like to once again like art direct it essentially. The models like smooth it out. Like they really take the edge off and like actually do a little bit of compositing for me. So like the pace in which I'm working now is like way faster. So I want to share a scene from what I'm working on right now. And full disclosure, this is a little bit gnarly. So it's a sci-fi horror piece. It's kind of inspired by the Thing in the blog. I'm wearing my Thing hat. So I wear my references literally on myself. But let me play this. This one does not have audio because that's always the last thing that I do is I have a sound mixer I work with here in Austin. And he handles all my work. But I'll give you sort of a little bit of an idea of, I'm just going to scrub a little bit here just so you can sort of see what I'm working on right now. So this is a sci-fi film. I'm going to talk through a little bit of it, but essentially this scene is just an attack on this research colony by this aggravated alien organism that's been wronged in the act one of this film. So it basically infiltrates the colony, like distributes this caustic liquid that it sprays out, like sort of like squid ink, and like millions and millions and millions of eggs. And the entire colony just basically gets decimated within the span of like 5 minutes. So this is all scenes that take place during the chaos of this attack. And, like I said, all I'm doing now is doing my A frames and my B frames, usually. Like, I'm not doing anything more complicated than that. So this is a little bit of a different workflow and a different way to like conceptualize this. It's like I'm going straight from script to shot list to like image generation that I will be using for like the final product, if you will, or like the final frame.
So this isn't
this
hybrid.
piece has
This one isn't hybrid.
Oh, sorry.
This isn't hybrid.
No, this one is not hybrid. No. So this piece like has no additional VFX, right? Because that's the last pass that I do. It has no color correction or post processing because I'm able to like basically curate the look in Photoshop before I request image to video. So like the post processing is just these additional layers of control I can have later to add lens distortion, chromatic aberration, halation, like all that sort of stuff. But really, once again, like I'm a genre filmmaker. This would cost me so much money to do. Like, I mean, it's impossible for me to make this like in live action. Like it's never going to happen. Like, so for me, when I use these tools, I'm really, just trying to, okay, I'm going to stop it there. I'm really just trying to, figure out the best way that I can tell stories with this technology. And like I said, like now I don't really do tests anymore. It's like, if I'm starting on a project, I figure out a scene that I want to use, and then I build out the workflow based off of that. But yeah, my goal, like 100% as a creator and, director, filmmaker, et cetera, is to bring that cinematic realism into every aspect of what I do. And of course, like this doesn't have sound yet, but like when it gets mixed, I'm lucky enough, like my sound mixer, he's won like an Emmy for like the work he did on Stranger Things and stuff. So like I'm very lucky to, have those sort of contexts that can come in and really sort of give this the extra oomph it needs. But this is going to be a 22-minute film because it's going to be a pilot, like for a TV show that I'm developing. I have some interest in, or people are interested in, so that's why I'm putting this together. But that being said, too, it's like once again, it's like I want it to feel like a TV show. I want it to feel like a cinematic experience, like because the line between series and now theatrical or whatever, I mean, it's so blurred. TV looks just as good as movies. So when I'm approaching this as an episodic concept, I want to make sure that it can exist in that milieu and be compared to other things, like as well as also, of course, the key thing is having a compelling narrative, right? So that is the thing that I probably spend the most time on still, just like when I was a practical filmmaker. It's like coming up with the idea, figuring out like the relationships between the characters, what's the conflict, right? What's the resolution? What's the payoff? I mean, those are the things still that require the most brain power, because as we're all aware of, like now it's like, the aesthetic side of things, like will probably start to be taken for granted. The same way that when digital cine cameras became affordable, right? It's almost rare to see something that doesn't look that great these days, especially if it gets elevated, or goes viral or something like that. But yeah, like, that's sort of where I'm at. And obviously this is now flowing into the education aspect in terms of, how I teach my students. When I was at UT, I actually did have a class for 3 semesters. Like, this was years ago, where we were making generative AI shorts, like in the infancy of this technology. At my current institution, Texas A&M, like, you know, I integrated into Previs, but we don't have any full classes like where you like just go for it, make a Gen AI film. It's more like, once again, trying to figure out how it slots into the traditional process. In our case, more specifically with virtual production, since we do a lot of stuff on LED walls. And so, you know, in my professional work outside of the institution, we've used a lot of Gen AI for LED wall backgrounds, which, you know, is way easier than shooting a plate, right? And infinitely more iteratable, I should say, than doing anything like that. But yeah.
No, I mean, obviously, a few people are already asking how to follow you on social media, if you don't mind sharing on the chat.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, you can, yeah, sorry.
No, so if I'm understanding the two things you shared with us, the first thing has more hybrid layers. It is something you did.
Yeah, so even though there's no actual footage, most of those shots were created with an actual photographic reference as the baseline. Like, it wasn't just immediately photo bashing and text prompting and there's like endlessly remixing
Okay,
in
so for no
Photoshop to like
actors,
get the start frame.
no actors or cameras in the first thing.
No, so in the first one, all of the intense close-up facial performance is I used live portrait. And then I actually ended up using, like, for the very last version of that film that I submitted for some festivals and stuff, I used a little bit of One Animate for that as well. But so that does have synthetic performance, but also, you know, performance
Got it.
capture. This piece, we have not gotten to the stage yet where we're doing the dialogue scenes. So we are researching new ways and R&Ding new ways to shoot real actors and inject them into this, albeit, once again, a performance capture methodology. So the actors that I hire, you know, we're not going to use their likeness, but we will, you know, bridge their performance into the shots once we have a picture lock. Because I don't really want to do it for shots, like if it's over somebody's shoulder, there's no point in doing performance capture, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically for like lip sync dialogue and reaction shots. If, you know, we feel like the synthetic performance isn't getting there. But frankly, like throughout this entire process, you know, working on these films, and like I also work in the industry. So I'm affiliated with Moon Valley and Asteria. I do work for them on the industry side, as well as other clients that I have, like exploring this sort of technology. But the one thing that has stood out to me is like, that I don't want to replace is like, I always want to work with real actors. Like if I have a choice, like that's always going to be something I want to do, like get a performance capture pipeline going. And I understand, you know, for a lot of people that's really difficult, like especially if you don't live in a city where you have access to people like that, like it's probably going to be really hard, right? You know, that's one of the biggest struggles with just practical indie filmmaking is like, how do you get a good performance out of people? But so, you know, I'm aware of that, but like my personal goal is, since, you know, I've been in the industry for over 20 years, it's like I have connections, like, you know, I want to make sure that that exists as well. Because I think there's a lot of things that there's subtleties in the PCAP that can carry over and really bridge that uncanny valley, even if like the visage of the person is completely generated. So, you know, that's like super important to me, because, you know, another thing that I'll say too is, if you're a filmmaker who has a lot of practical experience and you've worn a lot of hats, right? So like I said, it's like I'm a director, I'm a writer, I'm an editor, I'm a cinematographer, I'm a VFX person. The only thing I don't do is sound. Like I've never done it. And I've, you know, just because I always know that I have somebody that will do it a million times better than me, but I've worn all these other hats. So like for me, when I sit down to do this sort of work, I really feel like I'm in my element, because to me, this is like this is like the platonic ideal of being a director, right? Especially somebody who's so used to all these other positions and has occupied all these other positions. It's very easy for me to step into any of these roles. And since, you know, outside of if I'm doing reference, I'm making the movie at my computer, it's, you know, it's very like liberating. Like it's a lot of fun. And the other thing with this piece, the second piece, the sci-fi piece, is I didn't write out a full screenplay. So my other conceptual approach to this piece is I had like a 4-page outline. I broke it up into a shot list, you know, per scene that I had described. And what I'm doing now, anytime I go into a scene, I'm doing sort of like a yes and approach. Like I'm improvising. Like, and that's something that obviously you can't really do at this scale, you know, unless you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, because we all know that there's blockbusters where they're doing page, you know, rewrites every single day. but it's like, this is my version of that, where I sit at the computer, I go into my, DaVinci Resolve project, and I can show you all that like right here. Let me see. Ooh, cool. And, I'm sort of just like scrubbing through my timeline here, right? I mean, but this is my bin. This is my editorial bin. These are all the takes that I've got, right? And I just go through, and like, if I find that, like, I'm missing a shot in between this and this, well, it's like, I have the first frame, I just gen a new take with a different camera instruction, right? And then I'm generating more coverage. Like, and so that, as an editor, gives me more material to work with. But the other thing, this is a really crazy timeline. There's hundreds of edits in this, because the full piece, like I said, is going to be like much, much, much longer. But the other thing that I want to encourage like people to do, right, is and somebody has a question: Flux or SDXL? Like, now Flux, like 100%. I don't use SDXL anymore. I've been using Seadream a lot as well. But one thing that I would really say, like, one of the skills that is like completely, I think, absolutely mandatory, that everyone needs to, if you don't have the skill set right now, like, focus on leveling up, is editing, right? Like, I think my pieces, in my opinion, and hopefully in yours, if you get the chance to watch it, feel more cinematic because they're edited like a film. I'm following the standard conventions of coverage, like in terms of wide expository shots, cutting the close-ups, over the shoulders, shot, reverse shot, right? I'm really cognizant of eye trace, right? So like, when a character is looking at another character, are they looking in the correct direction? When you flop the shot, go shot, reverse shot. If they're watching something, if we're seeing a reaction on the character, am I prompting the video model to make sure that their eyes are actually tracing the scene? These are all things that we take for granted in live action, but in generative AI is like actually really difficult. Like, you have to really work towards getting that cinematic language back in. But about editing, it's like, I will gen shots that I only use 16 frames of, right? So there's also this ability that you have to sort of curate within yourself to be a curator, to look at your 8-second clip, your 5-second clip, your 10-second clip, or with LTX2, now you'll have 20-second takes, right? And just know, like, I got it. Like, I just need that 1 second, or I just need that 2 seconds. Like, I see way too many AI, generated films where it's like the pace of the edit is dictated by the length of the shot that somebody has received as an output, right? Like, and nobody makes movies that way. And that is one of the first things is going to signal to folks that, I don't want to say you don't know what you're doing, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's the disconnect. That's why it doesn't feel like a movie. I mean, the average shot length in a film is 2 to 4 seconds long, right? Like, that is what editing is turned into. Like, it didn't used to be that way in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but now that's what it is right now. So this also goes towards this idea of like sort of a holistic understanding of cinema as well, like just being really literate in the conventions. And I'm not trying to encourage anyone not to forge their own path and come up with new ways of doing things. My point is, like, if you want it to feel like a movie, you need to know and be able to describe in your own words or in your own mind, like, what is a movie? Like, what makes a movie a movie? What is cinematic? And it's not just aesthetic, right? It's also the construction of your piece. So, anytime I go into a scene, like I said, I design the wide shot first, and then I figure out what my coverage is going to be within that scene, which is why, in a lot of my work, I avoid breaking the 180-degree rule, because as a live action cinematographer, that is ingrained in my head. And I also, like, there's a lot of shots of action in both of these pieces. I've found that, like, sword swinging, when I was doing the black and white film, like, sword swinging looked like shit. So I would always cut right before an impact, because, like, to me, it didn't hold up. Like, if the swords actually touched and, you saw something, it looked fake. There was no physics behind it. I think that's different now. We're in a different space. You can do all sorts of stuff, video to video too, if you want to do stunt sequences with actual contact. But, like, my point is like, I'm always trying to protect my edit by removing anything that anybody could point out and be like, that's an error, right? But, there is a fine line though, because, working in VFX too, it's like, I used to get very frustrated. And I think it's ironic how a lot of people in the industry were like, oh, it's just like a slot machine. You just like keep, getting versions. It's like, I mean, I've worked on movies and TV shows where, like, we were up to like V80 on a VFX shot, and people were just like pixel fucking. And, like, to me, I'm like, that is hilarious, because if somebody's really into the story, of what they're watching, unless it's like a gross error that like is just so obvious. Nobody watches movies and presses pause every 2 seconds, right? Unless they're an absolute psychopath, right? Like, you know, like nobody does that. So once again, if your story is compelling, you're putting it together in a way that is familiar in terms of the way it's constructed and the way it's presented. I mean, you don't have to do that sort of pixel fucking or whatever, because people are just going to go along for the ride. But like I said, to me, that comes back to editing. So I think like, you know, that as a skill set is just as important, if not honestly, like more important than almost anything else, because that's your last line of defense as a storyteller. Like your edit is the last line of defense. So yeah, sorry, just went off on a little
like
tangent
they don't call you professor for nothing. But you got some fans in the community and people that want to follow you. I mean, I think Wesley made a similar point. Like at some point, part of the success of something makes is speaking cinematic language, and I think people that understand that cinematic language have an advantage in terms of being able to tell a story. It's possible somebody wants to create some experimental artwork that reinvents cinematic language, and they should do that. There's lots of
Yeah,
setups for that.
absolutely.
But in the meantime, while most of the people you're talking to or making films for watch things that they've watched growing up through their lives, those things all speak a language of what a close-up does to you emotionally versus a rack focus, things that Wesley was saying too. So I think that is still a really useful thing that for all the light speed that this stuff allows us to do, it's worth learning the other stuff in terms of how stories have historically been told, and then innovate off of it. I mean, again, if somebody wants to be more clever, but I think editing is bang that point home, because there's a lot of editors that I also know that are stressed out by a lot of this technology, and I think
I saw the comment in the chat about my lens. Yeah,
but I think about
this is my Blackmagic camera. Yeah, sorry.
I just think about editors as being so super powered in this moment, and I think I want them to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, one more thing, just even taking it back to the shot creation, right? You know, in a lot of stuff, what we see, like I was saying earlier, it's sort of just like an ambiguous camera, right? It sort of seems kind of usually like a little bit fisheye and like distorted, right? And like, you know, if you were on set and you had a choice of prime lenses or a zoom lens, right, you're going to make a conscious decision in terms of what lens you're using to convey the certain emotion and the type of shot that you're creating, right? Like, you know, obviously we're used to a lot of wide expository shots being shot on wider angle lenses, so we see bowing and distortion at the edges, right? And it's presented like sort of an exaggerated perspective. But there's also a lot of amazing films that have shot wide expository shots with very long lenses, right? And so then the space and the depth is completely compressed, and you get amazing, beautiful like city skyline shots where the sun is hanging in the sky and it looks like it's, you know, 100 miles above the earth or something. You know, it's very different from a wide shot on a wide lens where the sun's going to be like tiny in the frame, like up in the corner, right? So just even something like that, or like sort of like what you're saying, Fred, that's like when I'm doing a close-up, you know, am I going to prompt it to feel like a wide angle lens because I want to feel like the camera is right next to somebody's face, like an intimate moment? Or, you know, does it need to feel sort of guarded and sort of pulled back? So then I ask, essentially, try to get an FOV for an 85 millimeter with compressed space, right? These are all things that go towards that language of storytelling, because a close-up that is on a long lens feels very different and means something narratively different than a close-up on a wide lens that's jammed right into somebody's face, right? And these are all things that you can,
yeah, but this is where film theory is going to hold for a while.
Yeah,
is that, you know, somebody incepted into our heads what it feels like to watch a wide angle close up.
Yep.
You know, that it has a sense of discomfort and distortion, and that is fitted to a Hitchcock movie where that moment yielded something scary happening.
Right.
He either figured out that it worked, or we all started using that as a language. And again, for now, it's a language that benefits the story you want to tell. If you want to innovate off of it, go nuts. You've never had more choices.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anything is possible now. Like I truly believe that, because, you know, the black and white film was a film that I, you know, pitched over a decade ago, like as a feature. And I just kept being told by, you know, folks that like in producers I was working, they're like, dude, you're never going to, even if you go to Eastern Europe and shoot you got boats in the sea, you have horseback battles, you have all this sort of stuff. It's never going to happen. And now, you know, of course, once the technology is ready, like, you know, I have a whole library of ideas that I'm slowly just going through one at a time. So that would be my other piece of advice. It's like, don't just percolate on one idea at a time, especially in terms of how fast you can create now. Spend all your free time daydreaming about the stories you want to tell, and actually work on them, because you have the brain power. You can focus on more than one story at a time. A lot of people do that. That's how, you know what I mean? But yeah.
I'm bringing up Adam, who I think had a question. I just tried to add you up. Adam, did you just go? Oh, there he is. Adam, welcome to the Discord stage. I think you're muted if you're trying to say something, but if you had a question. Well, in the meantime, everybody's a big fan of your anamorphic lens. Well played.
Oh, yeah, that actually is. It's a cheap zero-y anamorphic that's on the Blackmagic now. That's my.
Sorry about that, Adam, Deepak. Adam, I really ask him on how you really approach all that lensing stuff, because I've had trouble really not sort of being in that space of just what you get, and what's your approach to really attacking lensing, or is it a lot of reference?
It's a lot of reference. For the black and white one, like I said, most of the frames were generated in Unreal or like live action plate photography I took for blocking. So if I'm using this camera, like this Blackmagic camera, I have a whole prime lens kit. I have some zoom lenses. So I know that the FOV that I choose will be locked in if I'm using ControlNet to sort of transfer it over. In Unreal Engine, when I do layout, I use a Cine camera with the sensor size that I've picked. I usually stick with the Alexis 65 dimensions. So I get the millimeter height and width, and I type that in. Then I pick my focal length the same way I would as, if I was an onset DP or I was doing previs. For the second piece, the Sci-Fi one, what I've done a lot is using like flux context to basically just give me different coverages in terms of the angles. I cannot be as specific to say you can type in like 85 millimeter prime or whatever. It's like, I'm not really sure if that is 100% accurate. But what I've realized in the intervening year since I started the previous film is it puts me in the ballpark of what I want. If I'm using terms like that, long lens, close up, tight, white or wide angle lens, I put the millimeters in there anyways, but it's not going to be as accurate as if you do it the traditional way. But for me, sort of like I said at the beginning, it's like, I have so many stories I want to tell. Like, I don't want to spend 9 months on a short anymore. Like I really don't. I really want to, be able to create faster. Like I said, this piece is 22 minutes. I started on it a couple weeks ago. I'll probably be done in January with everything if the R&D for the dialogue scenes go well. But really, it's also, and I hate to put it in a way that is potentially abstract like this, but it's like, I think for me, a lot of what helps is I've just been so saturated with it as somebody who practices live action cinematography. So like my eye is trained to immediately, for me, it's like I don't have choice paralysis when I'm generating. It's like I know immediately if I'm gonna like it and if I'm gonna put it into the edit or not. So it's a very easy process for me to select what I want to utilize.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then do you I found a lot of looks with MidJourney, so I was just wondering, are you able to find new looks by experimenting? Because it has no control, but
a little bit. I'm still training Laura's for aesthetic quite frequently. So the black and white film was kind of interesting. I had shot when I was an undergrad. It was before digital cinema cameras were in academic institutions. After I was a senior, after I graduated at Pratt, they finally got like HD cameras. So I shot almost everything on film, like on 16 millimeter film. So I trained Alora based off all my black and white reversal stuff that went into the creation of that film. I looked at a lot of public domain old films, like stuff that you can get on Internet Archive. I would up-res stills using Topaz that I extracted from those films that are all public domain. I trained Alora on that as well, so I had a multi-Laura workflow going for a lot of the aesthetic. MidJourney I use for concepting a lot and like character design. But so like in the Sci-Fi one, I did a lot of like the character looks in MidJourney, but then I would use other software suites. Not software suites, I should say, other workflows like Comfy UI and like face replacement and stuff like that to actually put them in my scenes. But I like to say that I use everything really. I try to keep up with stuff. But as I mentioned earlier, when I'm in the middle of a project, though, unless there's a specific R&D goal, I don't try to integrate stuff that I didn't start with, if that makes sense. Because in my experience, that tends to then have a drift over the project. Like things will start looking different, right? And it gets a little bit harder to maintain continuity, visual continuity, and all sorts of stuff like that.
We're
awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question, Adam. Always great questions. We're right about a time. I mean, obviously, before you go, please do share your socials because the people are asking.
Cool.
Deepak.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm actually really bad about that, so I don't have like Instagram or anything like that. You can find me on LinkedIn, but I'll put my website down here as well, and you can shoot me an email, and I'd love to connect. Or, of course, for any sort of chat, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. But yeah, really excited to be here and meet all y'all. And also, if you're a performer, like if you're an actor or actress, like hit me up because I am definitely looking to that's my main point of collaboration that I want to sort of move forward with. Smart. That's a really good thing to put out there. Thank you, sir. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you more over the last few months. I'm really glad you joined us here and hope you stay with us. I'm glad Min came up because I was about to ask him, this is our first Discord party. Min, how do you feel?
Did it. I'm very shocked that it worked. Yeah, I got 60 something people here at the peak. Yeah, which is just 10 or 15 people below what our usual average is. So thanks everybody for joining the experiment. I'm sorry we didn't get to see everybody's faces. Maybe there's a way we can solve that for later, but hope, everybody gives us feedback. Let us know in the Discord. There is a Gen Talks chat or just in the usual Basecamp chat. Feel free to send us anything. I don't know. What do you think, Fred?
I feel great.
Feels
I mean,
good.
in some way, you guys are the early adopters of our new home here. So we hope you stay here because we're trying to, grow here. There's a lot more growth for us in this space. And obviously feedback. And I think a lot of us know Discord. They might even have Discord tips. So I'm in a constant learning state. But no, I mean, look, this is an ongoing experiment. I mean, there's things I will miss from Google Meet, and maybe we have to think about all the different pluses and minuses, but just using this space here is great. I actually thought the chat worked awesome this time. I actually think the chat's more lively in a Discord.
Really nice.
I don't know, anybody else, feedback while we're here? Anybody who've been Gen Talks fans that has something to add?
Raise your hand, I'll bring you up. But yeah, I thought, Maggie's gonna. Can I bring Maggie? How do I do that again? Boom. Gotcha. And sent. You got it.
Come on up.
Yeah, I figure most of AI is also on Discord anyway. I mean, honestly, just be honest with everybody here, that we would prefer to build our own solution. Maybe that will come at some point. Who knows? Hey, Maggie, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? I am so thrilled and thank you so much for this conversation because for me, I sometimes feel like lost. Oh yeah, sometimes I just felt like lost in creating video with AI and in the pipeline. So this is so useful. Thank you very much for this party. And I will be joined more frequently. Thank you.
We're here every week, except for the holidays, so we'll trigger. But thank you. Thanks for the comment. Sorry, were you're in the middle of it?
What's that?
Minnie, you were kind of big picturing on sort of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do want to have our own home here, somewhere else potentially. I mean, Discord. The moment that we announce Discord, we get a lot of complaints from people. So there's no perfect solution. WhatsApp, we've outlived ourselves. I literally have about 100 people waiting to enter Basecamp. And so that's definitely a concern. And so at least Discord does have that kind of support. It has, we can have hundreds of thousands of people in here. We can upload, we can do streaming, we can even do live streaming from here. So there's a lot we can do, which is awesome. We would love to have our own space, but we shall see. And that takes a lot of time and effort and money to actually build something. And yeah, I will say a little bit of a teaser. I don't know, Fred, you mentioned, because I got off a little early, but We are closing in on season 2 of Machine Cinema. Machine Cinema season 2 began with Sundance, right? If you remember, season 1, I think we did like maybe 10 or 15 events, and season 2 we've done like literally 100 events, and so we're gonna close things up entering into December. And then we'll kind of take a quick pause on our events. We'll still do our weekly stuff and all that kind of stuff, but we are going to take a pause for like at least a few weeks or maybe even a month to kind of reconstitute ourselves, welcome the new year. And through Machine Cinema look like, how do we engage the community differently? How do we do things? How do we be more ambitious? How do we dream even bigger than we already do? How do we think about Machine Cinema in terms of all the hubs that we have? San Francisco, New York, LA, which we are so thankful. People like Adam, Angelina, Tiffany, so many people in LA, et cetera, Laura, the list goes on. And then also, how do we support people in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, other places in the world? What does that look like? There's a lot of questions that we have, and how we think about how does Machine Cinema evolved. I'll let teaser of what's coming, but and maybe Discord is a part of that. So. Yeah, any last words, Fred?
No, just we're back next week. I think we're gonna probably have a lull right around some holidays that are just normal times to take a break. We are doing a Robo Dojo next week with Rory Flynn is gonna. And Weavy came up a lot today, so it's kind of good timing that we're going to get a Weavy masterclass sort of with him. He's done some really dope stuff with Weavy. They started to show me. A few more events here in LA as we wrap up season 2. We got a music video Gen Jam tonight with Open Art. I think tomorrow's in San Francisco, right?
Tomorrow's San Francisco. We got a big Uncanny Valley Fest in San Francisco on Sunday.
Yep. Our
first Gen Jam game edition on Monday, where we're going to experiment with creating a game and a video trailer or a cutscene game all in one night, which is going to be kind of fun.
Super psyched about that. It's been a dream of yours for a while. And then we have a couple sort of special things. We have an Impact Jam next week here in LA, which is kind of a cool sort of new iteration of how do we work with like nonprofits and do different type of content. So that's Jennifer and Michael and a few people in LA have been pushing that. And then we might finally have this Dome event in LA just the weekend of December 6th and 7th. I'm finalizing that, and that's going to be pretty mental.
That's your dream. We can both fulfill our dreams.
Lots of dreaming out loud, and we want everybody else to be part of it. And I'd say that's the trend I've seen. Is I think I think Impact Jam is a dream for a few people that push that through, and they can speak for it. I think I'm starting to see that as a thing that's happening organically, and that makes me really excited about what we've built in this season 2, as you say.
Great. Awesome.
So thanks everybody. We'll see what this looks like on YouTube. It's a lot of avatars and smaller screens, but we'll figure that out too. But yeah, thank you. Such a great turnout in switching platforms, and I was really happy to see that a lot of people came with us over here. So thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, and shout out to John Gonton and Juliana and Colin in Seattle for their Gen Jam, their Halloween Gen Jam last week. Awesome, y'all. Thanks, Deepak and Wes.
Yeah, big thanks to our guests. You guys taught us a lot. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Bye.